Welcome to Out Motorsports, the channel for cars as you are. My name is Jake, and this is the 2022 Audi S3. This is the middle child in Audi's A3, S3, RS3 smallest sedan lineup, and all three of those cars are new for 2022. Now, the Audi RS3 is perhaps the most exciting to all of us performance nerds and enthusiasts, but if you're looking for something that's almost as spicy and a little bit more affordable, the S3 is going to be the car for you. So let's talk about what this 2022 Audi S3 is. We'll do a full interior tour of the car, and then we'll get it on the road and see how it actually is to drive. So what is the 2022 Audi S3? Like I said, this is more or less the same car as the slightly slower A3 and the slightly faster RS3. I don't know why I just crossed my arms, but this is also on a platform shared with a couple of Volkswagens you probably have heard a little thing or two about. And those are the Mk8 Volkswagen GTI and the Mk8 Volkswagen Golf R. They are all on the same MQB Evo, for Evolution, platform. MQB started with the Mark 7 Volkswagens and has evolved for this next generation of vehicle. And of course, Volkswagen and Audi are related companies, so they share some platforms and tech and drivetrains and all that good stuff. Is that a bad thing? No. And beyond this just being a sedan versus a hatchback, there are some other differences inside that make this car perhaps the better one to get versus the Golf R, depending on your preferences. So let's run through what this whole car is and talk about some of those differences. This is not a direct comparison between the Audi and the Volkswagen. I'm sure their PR teams will both love the fact that I'm saying that, but it bears mentioning that one is related to the other, and they will of course get compared. So first of all, they're all on the same platform. Drivetrain wise, this is the Golf R. So this is the 2-liter turbocharged inline-4 EA888 in more or less Golf R spec. So that is 306 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. And unlike the Golf R, this is paired exclusively to a 7-speed DSG dual-clutch automatic and standard quattro all-wheel drive. Now, I mentioned the S3 is slightly spicier than the A3, and it's not just with the drivetrain. The A3 gets a different turbocharged 4-cylinder that makes 200-something horsepower and similar torque. But Audi did make some changes to this car versus the A3 beyond just the visuals. Of course, everything's a little more aggressive looking between the front bumper, the side skirts, the wheels, all that good stuff. But your front brakes are going to be upsized. They are 14.1-inch front rotors, which is always nice to get a little bit bigger brake on a car with a little bit more power. You'll note the brakes here are red calipers, and that is because this one has the S Sport package. Audi loves the letter S, so the S Sport package in this case gets you those red brake calipers, but that package gets you something that is not just a visual upgrade, you also get adaptive dampers. So you get shock absorbers that can ride differently based on the drive mode that you have chosen in the Audi Drive Select menu. So they will get a little stiffer or a little softer based on your preferences and what you have chosen. Now, the one thing that is not included as part of the S Sport package on the S3 that is included on the Audi S5 Sportback that I reviewed recently, that video is right up here, is a torque vectoring limited slip rear differential. What that can do is it can take power and send it to 100% left or 100% right on this rear axle. Audi did not include it on this car, which is a little bit of a mystery to me because the Golf R gets it. So a little bit fascinating. If you really, really want that, you're going to have to get the Golf R or perhaps an RS3, which is, of course, different vehicle, different engine, that sort of stuff. But otherwise, I think for most people doing most things, regular quattro that this has, all the S3s have quattro, I think that will be more than enough. Now, the other package that this car in particular has on it is the black optic package, and that gives you a few notable things. You can probably guess where I'm going given the package name: black mirror caps, black roof, some black accents on the nose of the car and, around the belt line and all that good stuff. And then you also get a set of 19-inch wheels with Bridgestone summer tires. So that is your black optic package. The other package on this particular car is the Prestige package, and that gives you all sorts of fun stuff inside the car. More t't anything, you get a Bang & Olufsen sound system, you get a heads-up display, you get a whole suite of driver assistance and safety sort of technology going on, larger dashboard cluster screen, the virtual cockpit. We'll talk about that all in just a second with the interior tour, but with all of this we have to talk price. And This one in particular that I am leaning on right now is $57,440, which sounds like a lot. It is about $11,000 more than a fully loaded Golf R, but we're gonna get in the interior and I'm gonna show you where that $11,000 kind of goes. So with that, let's open this driver's door and see what's inside. All right, so let's step inside the Audi S3. And the first thing you may notice is this interior is a little bit less austere than a Golf R. First of all, you've got these lovely Audi Sport seats. These are power adjustable, of course. They have an extendable thigh bolster, which I love. If you have long legs, you will really, really appreciate that. Comes in and out there. You've got four-way lumbar here and power adjustments for your seats. Before we get too far inside, let's take a look at the door panel. Power locks, a very fun, funky door handle. I like that. Two-position memory here. You've got controls for your power mirrors and your power windows and your child locks. Now looking back inside, the first thing you'll notice is there's just headlight controls over here. There's no defrost controls. They're where they should be in the center stack. So let's get into this a little bit more. Now, looking here, you'll see this is the larger of the two virtual cockpit screens, and you've got all sorts of views you can have based on your settings. There's a whole bunch of them, including a map view if you go right here. Really cool view going on. And then pulling back out from here, this is, again, a really nice steering wheel with buttons on it. There's real buttons here. This is for your center, your gauge cluster screen. And then these buttons are more for your multimedia stuff going on for music and telephone and things like that. Over here on the turn signal, this button will do some of your driver assistance stuff. And then looking further down, here is your cruise control, both for regular cruise and adaptive cruise. And then moving over, this is perhaps the best reason to spend the money for this car over the Golf R, because there are buttons and there is Audi's multimedia interface, which is fantastic. It is snappy, it is easy, this is a very good infotainment system here. It's got all of its own stuff going on, and then of course you've got wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. And then looking further down, again, real controls, hooray, for your dual zone climate control. It's automatic climate. The car has heated seats, does not have ventilated seats. Your defrost is over here where it belongs with the climate controls. And then looking further down, you've got the drive select toggle. These are your drive modes, stability control, auto start stop, which you look for every time you turn the car on, hazards, parking beepers, and your parking assistance. Looking further down, you've got two USB-C ports. There are no USB-As in this car, none at all, which is fine. You can get adapter cords if you still need one. And then this car has a wireless charger. The fun thing with this charger, it's been a little finicky with my iPhone. I have a 13 Pro, and the camera bulge makes it not sit flat, of course, and it doesn't seem to like charging 100% of the time. It's been a little fussy. Now, zooming further back here, this is where you get a few things that I don't love. You've got a start-stop button, of course, and then this is a pretty typical, mono-stable sort of shifter dealy. Park button, and then you go forward for reverse, down for drive and sport. Where you lose me here, Audi, is with this guy right here. This is your control for your sound system, and it's kind of like an old iPod, which is neat in some ways and impossible to use while driving. You have to kind of futz for it, and you rotate your finger like this to do volume up and down, and then the button, it clicks in for your different controls there. Thankfully, you've got a good steering wheel control, but this is the one thing I feel like they, innovation for innovation's sake, which all these car companies are doing in different ways, don't necessarily love it. Looking further back here, electronic parking brake per usual, your 12-volt socket, and I have to think this is the same font that they've used for 20 years on these things. It reminds me of many, many, many older Audis, which I kind of love. Two cup holders, a little storage pocket, and then a decently sized center armrest storage container going on there. Looking over at your passenger side and the extension of the dash, kind of interesting faux carbon fibery look going on here, a badge reminding you that this car has Quattro, and then a couple air vents. It's a really nice design overall. I just appreciate the whole design aesthetic here, and truly I am of the mindset that buttons are safer to use in motion than all these touch controls and haptics and all this nonsense that a lot of automakers are putting in their cars. So I love to see Audi just kind of doing what they know is, you know, safe and good or correct as it may be. Only other thing to look at back here is your sunroof controls right here, and typical like SOS and service and map lighting sort of deals back here. The sunroof on this car is not panoramic, but it is pretty large. I think it is large enough for sure. And then if we spin around to the back seat, it is a fairly small back seat, but that's kind of what you get in a car like this. You know, you don't have a ton of legroom going on, but that's okay because this is a small car. If you want a bigger performance Audi, they will happily sell you an S4, an S5, an S6, an S7, an SQ7, an S whatever. There's plenty of them. So let's talk about how this nice compact Audi S3 is to drive. All right, so let's talk about driving this Audi S3. So as an around town sort of commuter car, I think it's pretty nice. It does a nice job at just being a cushy car that is comfortable above anything without feeling too much like a barge. The suspension in comfort mode rides really nicely. It's worth mentioning that whether you get the S Sport package with the adaptive suspension or not, all S3s ride about 0.6 inches lower than an A3. So you've got a little bit reduced ride height either way, but in this case, you've got that adaptive suspension as well. Now, clicking Drive Select into Dynamic is going to firm up the steering. It's going to make the engine a little bit louder, and it will change, of course, the suspension. And even in dynamic mode, keeping things, you know, a little turned up, everything still rides pretty well. I don't leave it in dynamic for the sake of actual city driving. If you've got a lot of potholes and rough roads, it's not the most friendly there. But in either drive mode, I think you've got pretty good suspension feel and ride quality. I think the steering here is generally fine. I wouldn't say it has the most feel. It does get nice and heavy in dynamic mode. It could give you a little bit more feedback up front, but I think it's also totally fine for the type of car this is too. And then going into a corner here, takes a corner pretty nicely. It's, you know, at around town speeds, doing things like that, it's very confidence inspiring. Quattro helps you, you know, power out of the corner more than anything. Where you will miss that torque vectoring differential is more so going to be if you're really beating on the car at something like an autocross, and you're really trying to put power down through a tight corner exit. That's where you'll get the benefit of having that torque vectoring rear end. Other than that, I don't know how much you'll miss it, to be totally honest. And that DSG just behaves really nicely like a torque converter automatic for the most part. I think it feels pretty nice overall. And as far as seat comfort, since we're still cruising at slower speeds here, I think the seats are very comfortable. I like how you can adjust them a bunch of different ways. Certainly something that I'd be okay taking on a longer road trip. So that combined with the Bang & Olufsen sound that comes with this Prestige package, I think works out to be all a generally good package. Now, when you put your foot into it a little more, I think this sounds pretty good for being a 4-cylinder. The RS3 is going to be that Turbo 5, which is kind of neat. But yeah, this is generally just a nice, pleasant, quick, sporty car to be behind the wheel of. And I think it's pretty well balanced. I just like how it drives. It's very austere. I wouldn't say it has a ton of personality, which, if you care about that, it feels very German in here, which is not a bad thing. I drive a lot of German cars. A lot of what I've owned personally has been German. It doesn't have, something about it doesn't have that personality going on that I like. I think it's maybe not manic enough for me to get it, and that's kind of what it takes to get personality out of a lot of German cars. It just focuses on being a very well-executed vehicle all around. Now let's get out to the highway so we can do some things and not get pulled over, because we are in Virginia, where they like to do that if they look at you funny. All right, so heading towards the highway here, plenty of a grip as you go through the on-ramp. Even without that torque vectoring, it feels pretty nice here. And then accelerating onto the interstate, I've got my foot in it. Everything feels pretty good here. Generally, I think the acceleration is fine. I don't think this needs to be a faster car. If you calculate power to weight based on the Golf R and the S3's curb weight, the S3 is technically a teeny bit slower as far as how many pounds each horsepower has to move around, but I don't think it matters. I think it still feels pretty good. It's geared nicely. And then if I get this back into drive, if I just, pull out to pass and put my foot down, it still sounds good. And it picks up speed pretty quickly. So I think power is very adequate, and braking is also nice and adequate. Pedal feels nice, it's balanced, it's easy to just get in this car and generally be pretty comfortable. All right, and that is it for this review of the 2022 Audi S3. As always, thank you so much for coming along. Please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe right here on YouTube. If you like what we're up to, you can head over to Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Out Motorsports. Give us a follow over there. And if you would like to connect with some other LGBT automotive enthusiasts and motorsports competitors, head over to outmotorsports.com. We have a whole community online and in person, and we would love to get to know you over there. Till next time, please stay safe, be well. I'll see you for the next one.